Hello YouTube, it's Bub's Comics coming at you with a quick comic cleaning. This, my friends, is my Hulk 181. This is going to get cleaned just lightly. We're not doing any solvent cleaning. We might do a little bit, but not much. It's just going to be a light cleaning on white areas mostly. It's a pretty clean book already, but that big white Hulk can always get whiter. And the back has some staining at the top. I'm going to try and work on a little bit. And little things like that can improve the grade. What I'm really excited is that this outside edge, which can be tougher to clean than the inside, is already fairly white. There's a couple of spots here and there. So I'm going to be cleaning on that. Then I'm also going to clean this area here. And we're going to be cracking it out of this CBCS case because, well, it's a CBCS case and I don't like it. So, so we're going to crack that out. Then we're going to clean it and we're going to press it and we're going to submit it to CGC and try and get a grade bump. We're at a 2.5 right now. It is missing the Marvel value stamp, so it's going to come back with a green label. But honestly, it's already got a certified grade here or whatever, a CBCS grade. I just don't like. I'd rather have it on a green label than in this case, really. And I think I can get a pretty good grade bump. So we're going to go ahead and crack this out. I have already cracked this out once before, but CBCS cases are very easy to open, and then they're also very easy to put back in. So now I think that a seasoned collector would be able to tell the difference there and try and get that focused in. But I think a seasoned collector, you can see a little bit of extra white inside that clip. This clip looks almost perfect. But this clip has a little extra white in it, and I think a seasoned collector would be able to tell that this has been opened before. But your run-of-the-mill collector may not notice. If you see also right there, there is a bit of the book sticking down, and that's because I cut the inner well out and freed the book from the tomb, if you will. So this time when I go about doing it, it will also be freed again. Now, some people will take the top clips off. I think the bottom clip is easier to get off than the top clip for whatever reason. And the whole inner well comes right out. So there you go. Goodbye, cheapskate. Look how cloudy that is. I hope that you can kind of see that, but it's not. It's just so cloudy. The difference in clarity. CGC case is much, much better than the CBCS case. I think PGX cases are even clearer than CBCS cases. So then you just, whoop. Now I've already cut that open, but normally you'd have to cut that open too. And then I'm going to just kind of split it a little bit like that. Open, dried up. It's only sealed on one side. And it comes right out. That's it. All right. Well, it's freed. So now that I have it out, you can take a look and see that there's multiple dents and dings along this book. It's quite a few. A good way to see it is to angle the glare a little bit. And you can kind of see some dents, some dings right there. You see that big fold between the L and the K. Now they're non-color breaking. Now it's got a lot of spine ticks, so I don't think I'm going to get much over a 3.5 on a good day. I'm expecting a 3. And if I get a 3.5, it's a good day. So move all that. I see a lot of people use the same type of methods. These erasers work best. Just simple. I get them at Hobby Lobby. Just kind of an art supply. Let's see if I have them here. Professional cap erasers. Cost me $2. So very easy to get, and you get a crap ton of them. They work really well. I don't like a new one on an old book. I like them to be a little softer and worn down. So when I get one end really nice and round, I'll use that for bigger areas. Then I'll use a sharper one for smaller areas. And be surprised at how much comes off. So here we go. Usually I start with the front of the book, but that's because I'm not usually getting them regraded. So because this is a book that I'm getting submitted and graded, I'm going to start on the back so that I can get a nice soft technique, wear my muscles down a little bit, and get to work. So here's an item that I don't see enough in cleaning videos, and that's this brush. This is an artist brush. So you buy it at Hobby Lobby. I think it cost me like $3. It's got horsehair or something like that. So the point of getting something with really long bristles, because somebody was like, why do you need something so long? Is that if it leaves behind a bristle, it's very easy to detect, and you can just whisk it away. So the point of this is that when you make eraser marks, like anything, you remember when you were a kid using pencils and erasers, it leaves little eraser kind of shavings, if you will, rubbings all over the place. And if you don't wipe those off before you put them in the press, that will make an indentation in your book. And what's the point of pressing it if you make an indentation? So I constantly will be swiping this away, and then I just kind of wipe it down to the floor. Just get it out of the way. So I also use a life-size magazine board. And the reason that I do that is that if you open a book up between them, it pretty much covers the entire length of a book. So it's nice and even. You can see just how clean those staples are. If anyone wants to see this book in action, be the last time, right? So there's Hulk 181. First appearance of Wolverine. Not in cameo. So here's what it looks like. It's a very clean copy on the inside. I'm not going to handle it too much. I also see a lot of people wearing gloves when they clean books. And I think that that's important to a degree. You can see where the marble value stamp has been cut out right here. You couldn't ask for a cleaner cut than that. I mean, that doesn't even have, it's completely, they took a razor blade or something and cut that out. So you couldn't ask for better than that. You could ask, you're not going to get it anyway. So here it is. Fantastic book, super awesome. I love it. Very happy to have it. And honestly, people say, oh, you're going to slap a book and you'll never be able to enjoy it the same way again. Well, with these facsimile reprints, I really don't need to open up my original. And we're going to start. So I want you to notice this line that's right there along the edge. And that spot up there along the edge, it has a very, very dark line. So we're just going to clean that up. And that's just from rubbing against other books. And there's lots of cleaning methods. I've heard people say only clean in one direction, like a constant sweeping motion. And I'll do that in some places. Usually around the edges, I'm very careful to only go in one direction. You also got to be careful around the staples. Like around the staples, I don't do a big long drag, because around the staples you can end up indenting the book if you push too hard in one direction or another. So I like kind of small erasings, very small. I'm not putting any pressure on the book right now. I'm just barely moving it. So I hope that's coming through. I know it's not the clearest all the time, so I'm not ready to tackle that stain yet. I work on the inner spine first because it is the least likely where you'll make a mistake. Out here, you can pull the corner of a book off real easy if you're not careful. I've done it, and I think anyone who's ever cleaned a book will say that they've done it too, because it's definitely doable. You want to work with as much light as you can. Sometimes I'll do this in the kitchen, but since I'm filming it today, I'll do it here. I've got spotlights, and the room is well lit. I don't know how much of that comes on camera, but it's pretty well lit. And the other thing you got to be careful of is to make sure that there is even pressure on the book from both sides. That way, if you do make a mistake, you're limiting the tear, you're limiting the rip or the mistake. Boy, that little spot came off real well. Oh, I love it. And that's so exciting. If you've ever cleaned books, you know the feeling I'm having right now. It's like you're performing magic watching these come off. Watching these little stray marks. Probably came from some other crappy book that means nothing now. And the nerve of it to dirty my book. So, really coming off well right now, guys. I'm super excited about it. It's doing good. This is my dull side for bigger areas. And it's really coming off well. Now, when you get to the corners, you definitely want to work your way towards the corner, and you also want to be careful all the time on the edges because it's very easy to pull off. So there, I've done one whole part. I'm going to go ahead and sweep it away. And I usually sweep it away from the book in whatever the closest way away is. And then I just sweep it away. Just get it out of there. Like I said, I don't see enough cleaners using these. But it's very easy on the book. It doesn't, I see people taking their hand just because you're wearing gloves. I don't know. If any of you ever played baseball, you ever try to bat with a glove on? And sometimes you want to feel the bat, you want to feel. So that's how I feel about my pencil and my book. I like to feel the book to make sure that if there's any minute stress happening to the book that I can feel it. I want to know exactly how much pressure I'm putting on the book when cleaning. And, if I'm wearing gloves, yes, I can eliminate the off, small little mark that may come off my hand or something. Or oils, oils on the book. I mean, come on, this book isn't going to be a 9.8. We're not trying to get a 9.8 out of this book. We're trying to get a 3 or a 3.5 on an awesome day. If I get a 3.5 out of this book, you guys will see me jumping for joy because I would have never expected that. I'm shooting for a 3.0. It's good to have a goal in mind. We're going to work on that stain a little bit. So two things happen when you're dealing with a stain. One is either the stain comes out, which I never expected this one to come out because it looks more like a grease type stain. I always put my finger on the very corner to make sure that I don't pull it. I'm going to have very light touch when you're working on the edge. Very, very light. And if you see any spot on the book that might be a potential rip, just avoid it. Like, I don't even go near it. And I see if it's still a real visible spot that needs cleaning afterwards or not. And if not, I ignore it. Because, like I said, we're not going for a 9.8 here. We're just cleaning it up, making it more presentable. Heck, even if it comes back at a 2.5 again, it's still going to look a heck of a lot better than it did when I started this process. So, especially the back cover already. Front was already pretty clean. The pressing is what's going to make the front so good. And you'll see people like, oh, always in one direction. Do what feels natural to you. If you're doing some sort of highly mechanical motion, you're probably not going to get good results. You're better off to do what you're comfortable with because anxiety can play a part. One time I spilled a beer on a comic I was cleaning because I wanted to be so relaxed while doing it that I started drinking a beer. And so what you have here is you have a bend in the back cover. I don't know how well you can see that, but you have a bend in the back cover that has caused you see that there? Right there. So you got a bend in the back cover that has then been rubbing against something else. So this back cover has a lot of bends in it. Non-color breaking. But that's actually color adding is what I call that. So what I'm going to do now is just focus on that area with the dull side and work with the grain of it. So I'm actually retracing where that bend is and following with the dull side. I'm following that bend. And the reason I'm doing that is because if you go against the bend, like perpendicular to it, then you can cause a rip or you can thin out that spot. And you don't want to do that. So you want to kind of follow the contour of the book. And then when you're done, when you press that, it'll be invisible. And actually, you can already see that it's gone. Now there's where it was. And you can still see the bend right there. But after it's pressed, that'll disappear completely. Now that stain didn't come out. The one that was in this corner here, it's still there. There's not much I can do about it. In fact, stains become even more prominent the more you clean around them. So especially grease stains. So I'm working on it a little bit just to lighten it up a little bit. But I don't want to take the shine off the book, which is very easy to do. So again, I don't use gloves. I know some people are like really sticklers. If their hands in the book, they use a glove. and you don't want your hands to be like sweaty or dirty. I mean, I wash my hands first. You don't want sweat or dirt to be adding to the book, but I just like to have a hand on the book. I like to touch it. I like to know that I'm putting the same amount of pressure all around. If I start to pull the book with the eraser going over, I'm going to feel that, and I feel like a glove will lessen that effect. See, now, there's the thing. You got to use all your senses. So I just heard that there's a ridge there somewhere. As I was running the eraser over it, I heard it catch a little bit. Very, very little. And sure enough, I'm pulling up the book, and you can see right there, there is a very, very small 2 little edge marks. One right there and one right there. And that's what was catching on the eraser. Now, I don't think that's a real big grade killer, but because of that, I'm going to work my way towards the edge in that spot a little bit, and again, go very easy. Now, that little edge, I could hear the eraser hit it, and I could kind of feel it with my fingers too, because my fingers are always on the outside of it. Wherever I'm working, my fingers are sandwiching that spot. Now, with these white erasers, you want to stay away from color. All black, white, any of it, The white, you want to stay in the white, and you want to stay pretty much outside of any writing or color. And, if you have like your sharp end here, it's, this is a sharp end. So if you're using this, I've already switched, so I forgot to tell you. So, all right, so I switched to the sharp end because I'm going to be working on the interior in between these little spots of writing. And I don't want to go over the black any more than I need to. So I'm like using it almost like I'm outlining the area. And it's amazing what a difference that makes. I'll switch to my dull end and do the bigger side outside edge again. And a ton of stuff comes off. I mean, it's nothing but little black things flying everywhere. Because you don't realize just how dirty it is until you start cleaning it. I mean, you think it looks clean, and it does, but it's kind of like, you ever hear like someone talking about a book and they'll say, it's in good condition for its age. What does that mean? To me, that means it's dirty or it's ripped, but you figure anyone who kept a book that long probably kept it dirty and ripped. And that's not the case. There's no such thing as a book looks good for its age. It either looks good or it doesn't. It's either clean or it's dirty. So when I look at a book like this, I might originally think, oh, that looks pretty good. And then when you start cleaning it, you realize, oh, wow, it could have been a lot cleaner. And now it is. So even books I don't think need a cleaning every now and then, if it has a lot of white spots, I'll go ahead and work on it. Another reason I don't use gloves is that on the colored portions of the books, yellow is particularly troublesome because under yellow can be a lot of white, and if you put even a stray eraser mark there, it'll really shine white. It'll be visible from across the room. But also with your finger, you can detect irregularities in the book, like stains or raised debris. Right there with my finger, I found this. So I'll put a close up on it, and you may not be able to see it because it's very hard to see. But right there, where my finger's pointing, is a very, very small piece of debris, that little black that's above the word university. And I know that it's not a stain because I touched it with my finger and it caught the edge of my finger. So I have a couple of methods to deal with something like that. First, I try the eraser and see with the sharper side, I run off a little of the rubber that's already there. And with the sharper side, we're going to go ahead and try to see if it'll just pick it up a little bit. And if it does, we're done. And if it doesn't, we'll we'll try the absorbing. Work a little bit more around it too, because you don't want like a little white spot. So after you find a spot and get rid of it, go ahead and work around it too. Okay. Now that's something you won't find with a glove on. So now you look at it, and right above the word university, it's gone. So, all right, the back page is done. I'm not going to mess with too much of the color. I touched the whole book. I didn't feel anything else coming off. And the only thing left is that one little stain. So, as a last resort to try and get that stain gone, we're going to go ahead and use some absorbing. Now, a lot of people use the absorbing putty. You can use that if you want. Sometimes I feel like that adds crap to the book. But this thing, bounce it around a little bit, make sure there's nothing coming off. It's a pre-soaked kind of sponge, and it's not wet at all. It's very dry to the touch, but it's good for getting off stains. So this may or may not work, but we can try it out. You can see it's already been pulled a little bit there where I've been working on it. So let's take a look and see if we can get that stain. We're just going to drag it across. Kind of blot it a little bit, and again, it's dry, but it just gives a little bit of the absorbing on there. And then you check it out. Is it doing anything? And if it's not doing anything, then I stop. That's a stain that's going to be there the rest of the book's life. Didn't make a difference. The absorbing only works on certain things. A lot of people use it like it's their bread and butter, and they're using it on every book and every part all the time. I don't do that. Only stuff that I can't get off with the eraser and I really want gone, or it's really an eyesore, like that little stain. The rest of the back cover is so nice to have that little stain. It's kind of like, dang, man, So, now the front of the book, I don't hardly ever use absorbing on the front of the book. It has to be a real bad spot. And I identify those. I run my finger over it, make sure it's good and swiped away. So I'm going to run my finger, and you say, oh, the oil's in your finger. Really? Come on. You guys are getting a little too crazy when you start dealing with the oils of a finger. Right there, I can tell that there's a lot of ridges, so that's going to be color breaking. Right there's another color breaking crease. I can tell just by running my finger over it what's going to be color breaking and what's not. So I know that some of those are going to stay, but here's a non-color breaking ridge, crease. There's a little stain in the L. And there we have a date stamp, July 29th. So, all right, we're going to go first with the sharp edge. And what we're going to do is we're going to work at the same angle as my hand is natural. And we're going to work on the inside of the H. And I'm going so slow because you really don't want to take off the shine of the book. Now, the good thing is these erasers don't take off much shine, if any at all. All right, I consider that done. Turn it over again. I do a little shake just to make sure nothing got inside. And there's a few little things falling out there. It's pencil shavings and things. Go over it again. It even feels cleaner. All right. This book's ready for the press, people. Okay, so my pressing station is in the garage. One good thing about that is that it already has some natural moisture in here. Not like a ton, like it's not a dank garage or anything like that, but it already has some natural moisture. I use a Seal 120. 120 stands for, I think it's cubic centimeters of, how much a surface area you have to work with. So for a older book like this, say older, bronze, anything other than modern really that has the glossy pages, I heat at 225. And everyone has their own things. Let me come right out and say this. I'm going to go ahead and switch it on. And you see that Bruce now, the press, is lit up. So here's what I'll say about this. People have different types of presses, okay? And people that have T-shirt presses, they'll tell you different temperatures. They'll tell you different methods. So my recommendation is, before you take someone's advice as to how they press a book, you need to find out what they're using to press a book. And unless you're using the same tools that they're using, i.e. the press, then you should not be following exactly what they do. This press is made for paper. This is a dry mount, what's called a dry mount press. It's not a T-shirt press. T-shirt presses are made differently. This neoprene pad, look how thick that is and how heavy duty. That felt is absolutely perfect. The top is clean as a whistle. And every now and then I'll take a razor blade and go over it to make sure, because I think it's aluminum, to go over it to make sure that there's no foreign objects or anything stuck to it. So me using this press and using it at 225 heat to press a Bronze Age or later book is what works. Here's my little razor blade, if you don't believe me, for cleaning the blade, the inside. So anyway, and I also use silicone release paper to prepare the book. So right now, I just have the same pad that I cleaned on, because I know it's clean because I brushed it. And I just leave it there, and we'll wait the 12 minutes or whatever it is until the press heats up, and that green light will turn off, and the red light will stay flashing, and that's how you know that it's to temperature. So we'll catch you in a minute. And I leave the book out here. So that's what I was going to say about it being in the garage. One good thing about it being in the garage is that there's some natural kind of outdoor air moisture going on in here. And so because of that, the book already softens up just sitting here waiting the 12 minutes for this to press, which is really nice. So if it's dry or anything, it'll get a little bit of moisture in the book naturally. And you'll start to see the pages start to open up and start to breathe just from it sitting here for 10, 12 minutes. So we'll be back in a minute. We'll check and see how it's doing. Okay, the press is ready. The green light will flicker on and off as it heats up and then cools and does its routine. But you see the green light's off, so it's ready. The red light stays flashing all the time to warn you that the book is in process. So what happens now is that I keep the book on its main platform, and I'm going to pull out, these are my silicone release sheets. I'm going to go ahead and open up the press. And there's one sheet I'm going to put there. I try not to put it all the way in the back. I just kind of keep it there. And then here's my in-between sheets. Let's see if I can set this down for y'all. All right, hopefully you can still see that. So I take the in-between sheet and I put it between the back cover and the last page. Now this book has no spine roll at all, which is really nice. Otherwise, you'd be seeing me do a little spine roll fix. But this book is perfect on the spine. So I put this other one in between the page and the splash page, between the cover and the splash page. And that's it. Give it one last little shake. Make sure nothing's stuck to the cover. And then we feed her in like that. Looks good. And we take another full size sheet, silicone release paper, put it on top. And the reason I'm using silicone release paper instead of Teflon is because Teflon leaves very small, but over time noticeable marks in the book. That's it. Close it up. And I'll leave it running in the press hot for, I vary it. Sometimes it's 5 or 6 minutes or 2 minutes. Sometimes it's 10 minutes. This one I'll probably leave in the press with the press running and hot for about 7 or 8 minutes. So we'll turn this off and we'll come back to you. But another thing that I was going to mention was backing boards. You'll see a lot of people put backing boards inside the book. And I can tell you that from what I can tell, when you're using a t-shirt press instead of a dry mount press, I think that there's an issue with stiffness. Now, this is meant to, if you ever see like a matted photograph that's got the mat stuck to it and then it's put in a frame, that's what this is for, primarily. So this is meant to press pieces of paper together. And you're kind of using the right tool for the right job here, in my opinion. So a t-shirt press, I think maybe you have to use boards to stiffen it. Maybe people talk about the staples. They'll put a board in the middle of the book. Here's the deal. The heat is only, and the same thing with the t-shirt press, the heat is only coming from one place. This bottom is cold. There's no heat coming from there. So what you'll see a lot of times is people will put a t-shirt, or they'll put a board inside the book because they're worried about crushing the staples into the book. But if you put that board in there, that's more layers that the heat has to go through from the top to the back of the book. So what you'll see those people have to do is then after that, they'll have to take the book back out and press it again, press the other side of it. And it's like, you shouldn't have to press a book 2 or 3 times to get everything out. When I press a book, I put it in once, just the way that you saw, and I've never had to repress a book. All the wrinkles come out the first time, all the creases come out the first time, all the way through the book. I've never had to put a backing board in there. I've never had to flip the book over and run it through again and all this kind of stuff. So take it for what it's worth. That's my method. I don't use backing boards. I've seen other people use plain sheets of paper in there. That's all good and well, but a plain sheet of paper is actually meant, like a piece of copy paper, is meant to absorb and retain ink. I don't want anything that's meant to absorb and retain ink inside my book while it's being pressed. So I use silicone release paper for that too, inside the book to sandwich the covers. And I do that because it adds some stiffness to it. It's thicker than a regular piece of paper. It's pretty, silicone release paper is pretty nice and thick. It has a little bit of texture to it. And it really does kind of sandwich that cover in so nicely and make it so nice. And you want the heat to get through it all. So no backing boards, no regular sheets of paper. Use silicone release paper. Use a machine designed to press paper, and you should be fine. This is also designed to be put through paper, and into a press. So, I mean, you use the right tools for the job, and I think you have a better chance of success every time. You want to save money and get a t-shirt press? Go ahead. But to me, this wasn't that expensive, that much more expensive than a t-shirt press, and it works the first time, every time. And it's meant, I'm using it for what it's meant to be used for. So anyway, that was about a 2 or 3 minute rant. So what you're really waiting for is for the green light to turn back off, meaning that it's back up to temperature. And that's the reason. If you noticed, I had the press open for quite a while while I was feeding the book in. I don't rush that process. I don't try and get it in while the iron's still hot. There's no sense in that. It'll heat up fast enough already, and it stays hot for hours afterwards. So another good thing about being outside with my press relatively is that it cools down a little bit quicker. So this book, normally, if I'm in a rush, I can pull a book out in about 2.5 hours and not have it curl back up on me. If I want to be safer, 3.5. If I want to be ridiculously safe, like when I pull out the book, it's like cold, then 4 hours. And that's what this will be in. So this will be in for 4 hours. We're going to turn it off now. It's clearly to temperature, and that's all that you're really waiting on. I've turned it off, and then just in case, so the whole frickin' thing doesn't catch fire, I pull the plug out too, because we don't want any accidents. Now, some of you will ask about moisture chambers. I'm expecting that. I do have a self-made moisture chamber. It's down here. It's very small. It's only big enough for the size of one book. My thing about moisture chambers is that most of the time, it's unnecessary. The only time that I've ever had a book that needed to be moisturized, if you have a book that has a really bad spine roll and you need to work out the spine roll, then a moisture chamber or a steamer, whatever you're using, is very good for that. The other thing that I use a moisture chamber for is if you have a book that has had previous water damage. And you know what the water damage, it feels real crinkly and very like dry and crinkled and bubbly and stuff like that on the cover. So if you've had a book that has that kind of damage on it, then yes, I use a moisture chamber for that as well. But for a regular book that just has dings, dents, and creases, I don't use any moisture at all, and they always come out fine. Now, I don't live in a super dry environment. I would assume that if you live in Arizona or something like that, or in the desert, Nevada, then you may need a moisture chamber every time. But I live in Kentucky. It's pretty moisturized in the air year round. And so you should be fine if you're in my area without a moisture chamber. For like 90% of the books I press, I don't moisturize and they come through fine. And if there's one place you're going to mess up the book, it's by bringing water into the mix. That's the place where you can oversaturate it. The color can run a little bit. All kinds of things can happen when you add moisture to the book before you press it. And I don't really, if it doesn't need it, I just don't do it. And like I said, almost every book that I've pressed didn't need a moisture chamber. I have one available for the ones that I just have decided did need it, but for the most part, they don't. So that's it. I'll show you what it looks like when it gets pulled out, and we'll see you in 4 hours. Well, all right. It's the moment of truth. Time to take our Hulk 181 out of its happy little bath of heat. All right, let's take a look. Usually it will stick a little bit to the top. So I open it real slow and kind of give it a little bit of shake to make sure it's not stuck. Pad is totally cool to the touch. So leaving it in there, it really isn't doing anything anyway. I take the whole thing out with a board. Go ahead and close this back. All right. Let's see how she looks. There's the big reveal. Ooh, that's one flat book. Look at that. Did you see it from the side? Look at how razor sharp that is. Isn't that amazing? Take a look at it like that. Super flat. Look at that. Clean came out good, yeah? You couldn't ask for a more flat. Look at that. Beauty, eh? Let's look at some of those spots we saw earlier. And I don't see any dents. Nothing. Super flat. Look at that. All right. And we'll take these out. I just kind of pinch the edge there. And I just kind of slide them out, both the top and the bottom one together. And that's it. There you go. There's our Hulk 181. Cleaned, pressed, and ready for a new grade. We're shooting for a 3 to a 3.5. What do you guys think it'll get? It's awful flat. We'll just have to see. It's awful clean. Dare we hope for a 4? No. I think it'll be a green label 3.0. So there's my prediction. All right, y'all. Hope y'all enjoyed this video and other videos like it. When you get done watching this, read a comic. And remember, don't apologize for the glare. Thanks. Catch you next time. Bye.